Thank you for joining us for this episode of Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories. I am your host, Allison Preisinger-Heggins. Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories is a podcast exploring society, culture, and current events through conversation. We aspire to create an open, respectful, and equitable space where guests may feel free to share their truth and lived experiences. Our core values are rooted in community, connection, and personal development. Stories help us learn, relate, and grow. We are here to listen, to take notice. Thank you for being with us. I would like to acknowledge the land on which this episode was created. I would like to show gratitude to the traditional ancestral land of the Coast Salish people, including the Duwamish people past and present, recognizing that these names are not the original names of the people of these areas. I encourage listeners to research the land on which you live and are listening right now. Recognizing this is just the beginning. The more you explore, challenge, and learn, the more questions may arise, but this is how we grow and connect. Welcome. In this episode, I speak with Angela Marshall. She's a creative content consultant and motivational speaker, and we discuss her experience as a light-skinned Black woman, mental health, and living vicariously through yourself. In her work, Angela shares struggles about facing herself, forgiving herself, and forcing herself to forge ahead. Her vision is to inspire worldwide through words, work, and wisdom. She is dubbed the mental horticulturist, planting seeds of motivation, celebration, illumination, and liberation across the globe. I really enjoyed connecting with Angela, so thank you for being here, and please enjoy this episode with Angela Marshall. How are you today, Angela? Thank you for joining me on Take Notice. I appreciate you being here so much.
I am outstanding. How do they say it? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. In today's climate, you have to be right. Like you have to be excited. You have to be positive. And even though things aren't, all the bed of roses in my life, I am outstanding and I am ecstatic to be on Take Notice podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I appreciate that. Absolutely. It's you have to have that balance, right? Even though you got to deal with some stuff, it's important to have that balance for sure. You said that you are currently in Augusta, Georgia. How long have you lived in Augusta?
Well, I grew up in Augusta, Georgia, home of the Masters, for those that need to make a connection, the golf tournament.
Oh, right. Okay.
Born and raised here, and this is home for me, even though I bounce around globally, but this is home.
Wonderful. I still need to make my way to Georgia. I think I've been on a train through it. I still need to go visit and see everything that it has to offer because I've heard wonderful things, and I had some extended family that live in the area. But
come on,
yeah, right. Yeah. Have you lived, so you said you've bounced around a little bit. Have you lived an extended period of time in other locations, or has it all been Augusta?
No. Well, when I was married, that particular lifestyle took me maybe about 8 years to where we went. We were in Denver, Colorado. We were in different parts of New York, as well as, just different parts of outside of the country. So, no, I've not always lived in Augusta, Georgia, but it is definitely home.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, I feel the same way about the Northwest up here. So, who were you surrounded by when you were growing up in Augusta?
Well, family members. I was born here, as I mentioned before, in Augusta, raised by my grandparents.
Okay.
And it was quite an experience. It was very different because I was born in 1971. And so the climate was very, very different at that time. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I resonated with as I sifted through potential podcast opportunities to be a guest and be able to just share with your viewers and your listeners, as well as learning from them, was the opportunity to come on and share my experience growing up as a light-skinned female, especially now because it just seems like so many podcasts or shows, sitcom series, they're really amplifying, and I guess I took that from you guys too, amplifying stories.
Yeah.
Amplifying the whole, race culture that is now being, brought to the forefront. It's always been in the forefront, but I think even more so now with all of the different things that are happening throughout the world. So growing up as a light-skinned child in an all African-American environment was very, very different, because as opposed to, me being this person who people say, well, you look at a fair-skinned person, supposedly they're elevated more, or they are, the belle of the ball, so to speak. My family kept me very grounded. So I was picked on, I was bullied. I always knew that you're a human being just like everybody else. Doesn't matter just because you're this particular color or that particular, have this particular skin complexion. Right. So it's very, very, it was very humbling. Sometimes it was very hurtful as well. I'm just very happy that now as an adult, and actually this started many, many years ago, my family and I, we were able to talk about certain things where our words, different things and actions that we did growing up, that it hindered our growth, our evolution, our relationship, being able to bond and get past it. And I know that sometimes that can be a difficult thing, because a lot of people don't like to have conversations for some reason. And one thing I do know, and I believe very, very heavily in, is that communication is key. And if you're feeling a particular way about something, even if it's something, let's just say that was instilled in you growing up, because let's just get real with it. A lot of things that habits, routines, words, actions, how we think, it is formed as a child growing up. So when when that's all you know, then that's the form or the shape that you begin to take on as well. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. However, I think that it's just imperative that conversations continue to be in the forefront of homes, especially as it relates to just feelings about certain things, whether it's skin complexion or whatever, the skeletons that are in the closet, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's not something that all families, I imagine, I know all families are able to do at any point. So it's wonderful that you were able to get to that point with your family. Are you comfortable sharing any of the specifics of what, I guess, either who it was it all of your family, or like what kinds of things were said and things like that, or?
Absolutely. Hey, that's what we're here for, right? I am a firm believer in that truth heals. I know we've been given that whole cliche lie that says truth hurts, but really truth heals. What hurts is the lies that were told. Then all of a sudden the truth comes out. And so then the truth gets a bad rep, right?
Yeah, true. Good point.
My cousin, a few of my cousins actually would always say that I was adopted because I was so light, and they were a darker skin complexion. And it bothered me, because I began to wonder if I really was, if I really was adopted, because they would say it so much. Among other things, my mom didn't want me. That was their take on it, because I was actually living with my grandmother and my grandfather. And I'm going to fast forward just a little bit from being told that so many times that my mom and my dad didn't want me. I carried that for so many years, that weight of feeling rejected or unwanted, until after my mother passed. She died in 2013, and I was able to go through counseling and therapy and get that worked out.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I keep saying, words really do matter as it relates to, whether you're in a family and people exalt you, and they think, okay, well, this skin complexion is better than that skin, or this particular hair, texture is better than that, or because you have more degrees, or because you have this zip code, or whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. And I think that those things are, I'm not saying that, if you've achieved certain accolades or certain things, that you go to school for, or just even in your professional life, your personal life, absolutely, we should be proud. We should be proud of heritage. We should be proud of, different achievements. But I think when you start, or I know when you start pitting it against another family or another, person's dynamics, and you then become or think that you are superior over them, that's where the problem lies. Mm-hmm. And for my cousins, just, they didn't know. They were in their teens. I was like, a young child, 7, 8, 9. And I guess that was just their way of having a particular banter with their cousin. Mm-hmm. But it hurt me. And it hurt me for many, many, many years. So mm-hmm. that was just kind of, one dynamic of it. And then just my mom, I think because my dad was the fairer skin and kind of whatever they had going on, and how she would actually project her disappointment, her discouragement from him to me, on me as a child, whenever she would surface into my life, because I was fair skinned again. It was just, it was very, very, very rough. It was a very, very difficult, weight to carry as a child. And even more difficult, you're talking about like I'll be 51 this year, and I just got relief at age 40-ish from all of that stuff. So you're talking about a 40-year period to carry on, whether it was the children at school picking at me, talking about, again, the dynamics of my family. My family members would come to my plays or PTAs, and of course they're all darker than me. So then I've got the friends at school. And what I don't want is your viewers, your listeners to think that I'm saying all of this for some sort of pity party, because I'm not. Like, I'm stronger because of it. I'm telling my story with the hopes of being able to help people that are still going through those things mentally as I was, with the hopes of being able to help them to understand what you can do to get over those things. One, I had to face myself. And in facing myself, even if therapy or counseling is not an option for some, because I understand it may be either a financial burden, or maybe you just feel like you don't want, you don't want to talk to anybody else about your problems. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you really do have to face yourself, and you have to understand, why do you feel the way that you do? And that was very significant for me. Why did I feel like I wasn't good enough? That, whether it was rejection, feeling like my mom and dad didn't want me, I'm living with my grandparents, or now I'm living with my grandparents, but that family dynamics is picking on me too. So maybe I should have been adopted, just going down many, many rabbit holes. And I had to really just come full circle with myself and silence this monkey mind and be like, well, you know what? All of that's in the past now. I just need to really focus on, what do I need to do as a person? Doesn't matter, light skin, dark skin, light eyes, dark eyes, hair texture, whatever. Just as a person, what can I do to be a better person, become a better person, and then help other people become better people as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot to work with, I imagine, and like work through. And obviously, I mean, it takes a lot of time, especially because, I don't see it as a like a pity party type of thing at all, because it's what you went through, and that's your story. And as a kid, you can't do anything about your surroundings. Like you're saying, like that's what you know. And if that's what you're given to work with, then the only way that you can get out of that is as you grow, realizing there's names for things, and it's not always like this for everybody, or some people are more accepted in their families than it sounds like you were in a way. So yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, because I'm sure you're not the only one who's had a similar experience. And that sounds really, really tough, being in an environment where you're just not accepted for who you are, or judged for the outside, that kind of thing.
Totally exterior. Totally. Mm-hmm. And I think that in all things, considered, for most children, that's the way that it is, because that's what we see.
Sure.
And since I didn't really look a whole lot like, my environment, I was just like an easy target, so to speak. I will say that I was not totally innocent. Like, people would spew things towards me, and then I wouldn't project things back, because at some point, and I talk about it in a book that I wrote some years ago, I then became a mean girl. Because it's like so much is heaped on you, and, and you get kind of tired. And I was tired of trying to explain myself, like, no, I don't think I'm better, or no, what? I mean, like, I went through so much. I actually tried to cut my hair off. because people were talking about, at that age, 12, 13, they're like, you're not better than me because of your hair texture, or whatever. So I, at that point, would do anything to either dumb myself down, dim my light, or I just wanted to look and be like everybody else because I felt like I was not. So when you're in situations like that, I just believe that it's most important that you understand why. Why do you feel the way that you do? Like, I couldn't do anything about them, the way that they felt, the way, felt the need to say this, do this, or how, whatever they were going through. But I 100% at a certain point in my life could take responsibility and accountability for Angela. So I've done that in a way where now when people say certain things, I'll just kind of take us into a particular situation where my ex-husband, he was a National Football League player. And there's this stereotype that the WAGs, the wives and girlfriends, are either exotic, they're Latino, they're light skin, whatever the case is. And so on one hand, I was told I fit that bill, being a light-skinned, female with my ex-husband, but the majority of them didn't even know that I actually met him in high school. Oh, like it's just an assumption. It's just, again, it's a stigma, or it's a stereotype. So I was actually with him in high school when he was in college, and then we, went to the NFL. But nobody cared about that part. It was just, oh, well, that figures. He's in the NFL. So he's brought on this light-skinned female that's supposed to be so much better. And I don't even know where that stigma comes from, that light is supposed to be, light skin is supposed to be so much better, or that attracts so many professionals. But what I ended up doing was saying to myself, well, you know what? These people are comparing themselves to me. And it's like, I've given them absolutely no reason to. And I get it. I understand that, there may be people out there that maybe they do think that way, or, they were brought up in those types of homes, but I was not. So I was really taken off guard when people would kind of, project this particular assessment onto me. And it really, really upset me. And so that's why I decided, you know what? I really need to have my truth out there so that I could help people to really start living vicariously through themselves, and just let them know how important it is for you to be you. And it doesn't matter what color you are, skin complexion, background, or whatever, as long as you're on a trajectory to where you are trying to be and become a better person, that's all that matters.
Yeah, because it seems like you went from being bullied for your skin to being kind of bullied in a different way for your, like the opposite, like kind of like a whiplash thing. So,
it was a never-ending cycle at one point.
Yeah, it sounds like that. So you met your ex-husband in high school. Did you go to the same college together, or was he in college going to football or doing football, and then you were doing something else?
Yes. So he actually went on to college, and I was pregnant with our first child.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So the dynamics changed.
Yeah.
It changed a little bit. And I don't regret it. I think that having the college experience, absolutely, 100%, I'm an advocate for higher learning and continuing your education. Unfortunately, that's just not the path that I carved out for myself.
Sure.
But I totally believe that during the time that he was in college, and with my experience with having our first child, and then just trying to work through different things in my head, is what was needed at that particular time for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very transformative time. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say that about any time, but but that time for sure. So it sounds like, were you an only child? And then you had your cousins around, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I'm surprised you were able to pick up on that. Most people, when I tell them, obviously, I'm like, hey, I was an only child. And they, like, if they know me, they know some of the the tantrums and I guess
Oh.
the stereotypes that come with being an only child.
Sure.
But most people think that I have, that I have like siblings, like I grew up with siblings and stuff, but no, I was an only child by my mother, and I grew up in a loving household or family dynamics with lots and lots of cousins.
Yeah. Cousins are basically siblings,
Absolutely.
Yeah. What did your grandparents do while you were growing up? What were their trades?
Well, my grandfather actually worked in a mill for many years. And my grandmother was stay-at-home mom.
Nice. Wonderful.
Yeah.
What kind of a mill was it? Do you know?
So it was with soda cans, I think, because this was like many, many years ago now. So you're talking about 70, that would have been 73 to about maybe 78 or so. So something dealing with, the soda bottles going back in the day, I guess. And then they pressed like the old type of bottles. Yeah.
The cap and all that stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Glass. Yeah. So that's what he did. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Out here, there's a lot of lumber and stuff. So when I hear mill, I think wood and lumber and all that stuff. So that's interesting. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. So you had your first child when you were, I'm guessing, in your 20s or late teens?
No, actually 17. Wow. Right out of high school. And then my ex-husband went on to college. And of course, I was pregnant. So I stayed behind. Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
We have two amazing adult children. Our son is 34. He's the oldest. And our daughter is 32.
Wonderful.
And we were married. We didn't get married right away. We dated for about 7 years.
Yeah.
And then we got married. And then we got divorced 7 years later. So, as life would have it, I think one great thing that comes from not knowing your next path is because it makes for a great story for someone on down the road.
Sure.
So even though I had a lot of twists, a lot of turns on this journey of mine, I've often been asked, if you had things to redo or do over, would you? And my answer has always been no. I mean, even with the things that I felt like were really grueling and just so tough and so difficult for me to go through, it all brought me to a point to this Angela right now. So I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful that even though a lot of the difficult and the hardships, it was so hurtful. And at the time I felt like it was disrupting my life, but actually being able to turn each one of those stumbling blocks into stepping stones and then propel me into the next level of my life has just been phenomenal. It really has been. And I know it takes a lot of growth personally and professionally in order to get to that point, because, there's certain things that I went through. And even now that I go through where I'm like, why is this, the particular stumbling block that I have to try to figure life out. But I'm still, I'm still very grateful and very thankful.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful stance to be in when there's so many things that could just steer you in a direction of misery, being able to be grateful and use that in a positive way and to move forward and to grow. That's difficult and also a wonderful stance. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that we don't give ourselves as people, we don't give ourselves enough credit because, yes, I'm facing this particular hill or I'm in the valley or I'm looking up at this mountain. But I think it's important that we pull from, okay, but I was here before. I was at another mountain or in the valley and looking up at another hill and I overcame it. I went through it. I went around it. I went over it. And so, being able to just take each day, each moment, one step at a time, and then look back over the different adversities or adversaries that have come before me. Life is really, really good, despite all of the obstacles that it sometimes presents in front of me, but it's very good.
Yeah, with 2 kids. And then you said you have grandkids that are waiting to go play today too. So I imagine that helps as well.
Absolutely. Well,
Yep.
I'm going to tell you, the grandchildren play, and my children too, but definitely the grandchildren play a big part in my progression and my positivity today, because I always think to myself, they're watching me. They're watching what I say. They're watching what I do. More so they're watching my children as well, which
Sure.
are watching me. So it's like all eyes are still always watching me, right?
Yeah.
So having to grow into a person or become a person that will help them be better people. That is my true legacy. Like once upon a time, I guess when I started this journey of sharing my story, 2016-ish or so, it was like, well, I want to leave a legacy of this, like I want my brand and my business to be that and to expand and all of that. But the more I thought about it and have just come face to face with myself on a lot of occasions, I'm like, really none of that stuff matters. Like I want my friends, my family members, even clients, my connections. I want strangers, even if they never buy my book, if they never, purchase a particular ticket to come see me at an event, it doesn't matter. I just want for my energy and my life to just leave a legacy of being a good person, becoming a good person, being a better person. So even though people know, okay, well, she did this, or, this is a mistake that I know she did, or this was a flaw, or this was, a vice. It's like at the end of the day, what did I do to try to make those things right? And to me, that is like the most significant legacy that you can live, because that truly is the gift that keeps on giving. I want my children and my grandchildren to many years after I'm gone to be able to instill in their children and children's children certain things that I did to continue to grow and to elevate beyond, whether it's stereotypes, racism that I've endured, whatever it is. I want them to just, be better people.
Yeah. What would you say would be a conversation that would be important to have in regards to the stereotypes that you've encountered throughout your life, or, the racism that you've come across and have dealt with? What's a conversation that you feel like would be important for people to have and continue to have to try to grow and improve other people's situations?
Well, I think that's twofold, actually, because one, in school, growing up from little, where there's, when you first get introduced to the structure of education and curriculum, you're taught many things. But I believe the one thing you're not taught, which you should be taught like aggressively, is just your mind, your mindset. Why it needs to be positive, why it needs to be impactful and an influence, so that when you're meeting and you're out in the real world and there's a diverse group of people, then, there's no inferiority. There's no, where you think you're better than, even if that's coming from your household, there's still certain things. I think that if there were classes or just, that type of teaching, it would make people take notice, even from little, so I think that's one thing. There needs to be some sort of required, I'm not going to call it training, but I just think just a mindful that helps people to be better people, because you get algebra and basic math and you get spelling and ELA and all of that. But what do you get that makes you a better person overall? Because all that stuff is great, but if you treat people like trash, or if you treat yourself like trash, I mean, what have you really accomplished?
Right.
So I think that's one aspect of it, just having, and I'm talking about from little. I mean, it starts in kindergarten, where there is, maybe it could just be affirmations where you're sitting there and you're like, I am kind, I am genuine, I am helpful, I am humble. I don't know. But the second part of that, I think, is, having conversations with yourself when you're old enough to understand that maybe looking at this person because they're light, they're white, they're brown, they're tall, they're skinny, they're whatever, and as opposed to demeaning them or putting them down, maybe there's a different way that you can look beyond, those type inaccurate, feelings, and just see people for how you want other people to see you. That's one of the things that I've really taken, I guess, an aggressive path towards is, so even though I look at a person and I know maybe they aren't doing something right, or I read something about a person and okay, yes, is outright they shot up, people because they were of a different race or whatever the case is, I really try to look beyond what that person has actually done and try to understand their mentality of why. Mm. And so I think having conversations with yourself from the moment that you understand that, okay, I've got to operate in this world, I think that would probably help a lot of the stereotype, the stigma, definitely the racism. I'm going to share an honest moment here. I typically don't avail myself to a lot of news, but when I do, I want to be cultured. So, or social. So I want to know certain things that's going on. Mm-hmm. But here recently, with the different shootings and whatnot, and usually there's some sort of backpack associated, right? Like they say the person backpack and they got on the subway and shot up or this or that. I promise you, like my brain, and even as strong as I think it is, when I see, whether I'm at the park or I'm, just in day-to-day life, and I see an individual, and it actually doesn't matter what skin complexion they are, but my brain has told me that something with a backpack, somebody with a backpack potentially that looks, a little downtrodden or whatever, like they are potentially thinking about doing some sort of harm. So that's what I'm saying. And that's a stereotype, right? That's a stigma that I formed in my brain. And I'm really trying to look beyond that and say, well, you know what? That's not all people. Right. All people don't do that. That's just this particular incident over here. And it does happen a lot, but it's still not all people. Mm-hmm. So there's no need for me, for my heart to be pounding fast or, whatever, or kind of projecting that on that particular individual. But it's easy to do. It really is.
Yeah, it is, especially when that's what you're connecting with, something that is scary, that is, and your body or your brain is probably a piece of that. Most of that is just trying to protect you. And so you have to kind of logic out of it, right? So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I think be cautious or understand that even with racism, if we were to pick that apart, I'm not gullible. So it's not like I don't believe that it doesn't exist, or, again, like there's this person that may believe this way, or this person because of their particular complexion or whatever. Maybe they do think that they're better than. I don't know. But I just believe that in any situation where there's a stereotype, racism, sexism, feminism, whatever, I don't believe that it's an all. Everybody,
totally,
everybody believes this way, or everybody, or if they look this way, or if they, speak about, particular stance that they have, that it makes, that it equates them with those types of, organizations. I just don't.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely. Can you tell me a bit about, you said you wrote a book. Has it been one book or multiple? Tell me a bit about what that.
So I actually have 3 books. Right. The one that I get interviewed on the most, though, is my autobiography, which is Reality to Rags to Riches, the story and life of an ex-NFL wife. And that's the one where I really pick apart the reality, the rags, and the riches. And I talk about being light-skinned, the stereotype with that was projected on me to look a certain way, be a certain way, talk a certain way, walk a certain way, and then the backstory, like people had assessed what they thought was my story with my ex-husband. And, just not knowing that I met him in high school. I wasn't this person that he became. Like the stereotype is when a Black man becomes successful, either he goes light or he goes white. Mm-hmm. As far as his mate is concerned. Mm-hmm. I heard that so much. And it's funny because even though we're divorced now, I still hear that. When people find out, they're like, oh, I can see that in you. See what?
Right, right.
That I was destined to be in it. Like I was, when I was birthed, it was like, oh, well, you're light skinned, so you're going to be an NFL player's wife. It's just a ridiculousness.
Yeah.
It's just a ridiculousness of it all. So that's why I feel it is just uber important and definitely a goal of mine and a mission of mine to just help people understand why it's so important to live vicariously through yourself. And it's not vain, and it's not like you're just exalting your agenda over someone else's. But I mean, realistically, you can only live your life. You can't live mine. You can't even live. We can't even live it for our children. Our children eventually will live their own lives. So I just hope that along the way, whether it's strangers, like I mentioned before, connections, clients, friends, family members, partners, I just hope that I'm able to set an example of, okay, this is how I feel about being a good person, not, trying to compare my life to anyone else's, better than, other than, less than, more than, or whatever, but just having a really, really good balance, to be a good person and become a good person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that phrase, live vicariously through yourself.
Live vicariously through yourself is an attribute to being who you are, understanding who you are, and understanding what you have and why it's so important for you to be that person and not try to take on a form of anyone or anything else. Far too many times we as a culture, and definitely societal trends and pressures and all of that, it's like every time you turn around, wear this dress so you can look like this person, be this weight so you can look like this person, or drive this car. I mean, we're constantly bombarded, whether it's with commercials or magazines or whatever the case is, to be like celebrities, be like people in power. Really, be like anybody but yourself. It's like constantly. And it's so annoying to me. And even it goes back to childhood, to where people would either say, well, you're not better than me because your dress, or you're this, or your whatever the case is. So fast forward many, many years, and I'm like constantly hearing that over and over and over again, which it was not my desire. And even now, it's not my desire, my goal, and my mission for people to be like me. When I have people reach out to me because they want to become a professional writer or a public speaker like I am, or a creative content consultant, ghostwriter, many of the different things that I do, I always offer them tips and tools, but I also tell them, now you take those and you craft it and you make it your own, so that you're not, trying to be this version of Angela Marshall, because you can't be. Mm-hmm. You're going to fail at it because there's only one me, and I'm failing being me in a lot of situations. So it's only inevitable that if you're trying to be me, you're going to fail too, period. But you're going to fail twice, because you're going to fail at you, and then you're going to fail at trying to be me.
Right.
So I was on a platform, I think it was 2018, and it was for young women where, of course, people were like, the attendees were like, well, I want to marry a professional athlete or a rapper, or I want to be a this or that or whatever, because that lifestyle is so glorified. And so when they got around to me and asked me, what is one piece of advice that I would tell the room, and also that was the height of reality TV shows. So of course, the attendees are watching those people and they're like, oh, well, I want to be like so-and-so and such, because she, has this, or she does this, or whatever. And when the moderator came to me, I just made that statement. They were like, well, what do you want to say to the girls, to the young women in the audience? And I said, live vicariously through yourself. And that stuck, because when I said it, it's like the entire auditorium and even the panel turned to me. And I was even shocked too, like, wow, okay, I guess I was giving this divine message that I need to help carry out. Because so many times, if you think about it, it's like, your friends. Oh, well, where'd you go this week? Oh, well, I'm going to live vicariously through you. Oh, you took a trip. I'm going to live vicariously. Or you're this, that. I'm going to live vicariously through you. No, let's just stop it. Mm-hmm. Live vicariously through yourself is so important. We can acknowledge how great, or I can acknowledge how great Allison is and, your amazing podcast and just different levels of achievements that you have. But to want to be like you, it really does a disservice. And not only does it a disservice to me, but any of my links, any people or, any attachments or alignments that I have with me, because I'm not being my true self. Mm-hmm. And so, being able to live vicariously through yourself, it just means that I'm definitely going to understand Angela, understand why Angela is put on this earth, and execute all the gifts, the talents, the skills, the abilities, everything that has been given to me in order for me to carry it out, because I'm the only one that can, as Angela.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Thanks for sharing that. What got you into the motivational speaking and content creation? You call it content. Excuse me. Creative content creation. My words.
Understood. Well, I have always been a writer. I've journaled from diaries and everything. And actually, that's where my books, I have 3 books that I've published, and then I have one that I'm actually a guest author in. But I've always journaled, and I've loved journaling. Now, where it gets a little tricky is I love to write. I love storytelling, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. However, when I decided to delve into becoming a public speaker, I met it with a lot of resistance because I wanted to just write my books and just stay behind the screen. I wanted to just fade to black, because then, you hear the criticism and stuff, or you read criticism, but doesn't really matter.
Right.
But as you know, once you come out front, in front of people, that's like a different layer or level of scrutiny. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was very important for me to dive into the public sector, not just because I felt like it would be a more effective way to reach people, because of course you can read my story. If I do blogs, you can read that people can read that too. But I think it gives it a different edge and it takes it to a different level when people can actually see you, whether I'm on a podcast, a TV show, or definitely in person. So before COVID, when I was able to maneuver through different events in person, the impact was great, because then I think people see your they feel the energy, and then they see you, they see the humbleness, they see that your true intent is to help people through your struggles, not just sell tickets and get money for a speaker fee or a stage presence or whatever.
Right.
That's never been my goal. Don't get me wrong. I'm fully aware that as we operate in our gifts and we do our talents, of course, you're going to be rewarded. It just comes, it comes with it. Mm-hmm. However, I'm set in, as I share my struggles, as I speak my struggles, as I talk about different tools and tips that I've used for what my version of success is, that it absolutely can help someone else in their greatness, in their walk, in their trials, in their triumphs, in their tribulations. So that's how I kind of took the jump from just being a published author, being a creative content consultant, because I write speeches for politicians and judges. I do slogans for corporations. I do resumes, bios. So, but again, that's like behind the scenes stuff. And like a couple of organizations got a hold to my book when I published it in 2018 and asked me would I be interested in actually speaking about my life. And once I kind of thought about it and said, okay, yeah, I think this is another level and another layer. I'm going to take it head on and I'm going to face it and, just open up that particular Pandora's box for the world. And so far, it's been amazing. Even with the criticism that comes with it, or of course the stereotypes and stigmas whenever I speak about certain things, I'm still amazed at how the gravity of my words is really, really and truly helping people across the globe. And that's the goal. That's the legacy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it seems like it was one of those things where it just kind of layered on. You have to, okay, am I ready for this? Is this the next thing that I want to do? That's wonderful.
Yeah, well, I tell you, is anything that you set out to do, in my opinion, is scary at first, especially if you're not necessarily groomed for it. Like, I think there are some people who are groomed for the camera. They are groomed for public speaking, and it comes natural. Now, of course, writing comes natural to me. Storytelling comes natural to me. But what doesn't come natural is the criticism or the hateful and hurtful comments that sometimes can be brought in your direction, really from just trying to be helpful. So I don't think you ever get settled with that, because even nowadays, I read certain things or people will say stuff or make comments and I'm like, wow, okay. But I try, again, that's where just taking myself out of my feelings and my flesh and saying, well, you know what, Angela, your story was this, and you came from a background of disappointment or hurt or different things. And I don't want people to think that I'm saying my childhood was all bad, because it wasn't, but there were a lot of bad parts. But I try to look at those people who possibly, have said something racist or stereotyped me in any way and say, well, you know what, they have some things to work through, or maybe they are working through it. I don't know. And I try not to take any of that, too personal. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you find that you mostly run into that kind of thing on the page or like on the internet, or is it in person as well when you're out at speaking events?
Both.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard.
Oh, because the world, what's crazy is I was listening to another celebrity. I won't say it because I don't know if I can use that or not. And I don't, have disclaimers or whatnot.
Sure.
But I was listening to another person, their podcast a little earlier today. And what he said was so simple. He was like, it's crazy how there's so much hurt. So, people stereotyping the next, or everybody's talking about the next person. If we would only just understand that everybody's going through the same thing or same things, but it's just a different degree. So whereas this month or this season, it may not be finances for me, I may be going through something mentally, emotionally, physically, and vice versa for this person, that person. But one thing's for sure, from the billionaire to, whomever, to the lowest person on that particular financial ledger, we're all going through something. And I think that when you have that mindset, where you really understand that, I really don't have any room to be critical or to judge this person. I think it gives us that sigh of relief to really just be and to let be, to live and to let live. Again, it's not like some people have said, well, it's like you're giving a free pass. Like, are you saying that because somebody murdered someone or because of this or they raped them? Absolutely not. I'm not talking about the morality of it. Just talking about like the mindset behind some people. Yes, what they did is wrong, or what they said or how they reacted or whatever is 100% wrong. But, in my eyes, it still doesn't make me any better than them, because, they're battling a different set of demons, just like I am. Certain things that I'm on top of mine. Like, I'm trying to, again, understand why I'm here and what I need to be doing while I am here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a difference between holding someone accountable and also understanding that there's probably a lead up to whatever it was that they did or said or that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Who or what would you say has been a big influence for you, either in your work now or as you were growing up, or at any point?
Wow. That's always a difficult question because before, when I would be asked that question, I would always feel the pressure to pick out 2 or 3 people or one person or one thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Now that I understand totality, right? And that just means being able to take links and alignments and lessons and learnings and love and light from so many different avenues. So I can't really just nail down one influence because it's like from my childhood with my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, cousins, then you get into religious organizations, the church that I'm a part of, and the leaders in that and different ones that poured into me. And then you get into my education, the school system. Then, you go on and my ex-husband and other family members, other dynamics. I mean, like really the biggest influence has just been life. Mm-hmm. And it's been every person, good, bad, or indifferent, every situation, good, bad, or indifferent, that has taught me valuable lessons. That's unfortunately, sometimes I had to retake the test over and over again when I didn't learn the lesson. But even that, just amazing, amazing influences. I believe that each person, even now with you and I and the connection that we were able to make and then having this incredible conversation, that's a puzzle within itself, right? And so the different puzzle pieces that make up this particular conversation that we're having, I'll be able to take things from that, and that will be an influence. Mm-hmm. Different things that you've said, different things that I've said, and then hopefully any comments or whatever that you get, feedback that you get that can help me to be a better person. And it just stockpiles like that from my incredible. I will say this: I have my 4th grade teacher is really responsible for me as a writer. Because I was such a drama queen, right, very early on. And she would let me, I kind of had conduct issues, not like bad, but I was the class clown, even though I got my work. And so she would always, instead of her telling me to face the corner or just doing disciplinary action, she would give me, at the end of each day, she would give me so many minutes for me to entertain the class.
Oh, really?
So, and then, it was like, okay, well, and then I want you to write this essay on this. And I began writing stories, telling stories and whatnot. And so that is actually what gave me my love of writing. She was a phenomenal influence, as is my, I have an aunt and uncle who I affectionately call Dunkle and Monty, for dad and uncle, and mom and auntie, because really that's what they're like. Mm-hmm. And they pour so much into me. Cousins, godparents, my children, my grandchildren that affectionately call me Nunu. Like the influence just is so vast and it's so broad that, mm-hmm. me being who I am now, it took a lot of people, and it's still taking a lot of people for me to become the person who I believe I was destined to become.
Mm. Yeah, I love that answer. Thank you for that. What's coming up for you that you're excited about? That's either work-wise, family-wise, whatever. What are you most excited about coming up soon?
Well, professionally, I am actually working on my 4th book, which will be a compilation of all of the inspirational and motivational sayings that I've used that are original, that I've used through the years. I've had so many people that whenever I speak, and especially with my one-liners, they're like, oh, that should be a t-shirt or whatever. So mm-hmm. I'm, concentrating on that first as far as like my next work of being able to write and publish that book, which will then turn into a line. I'm real big on being able to see things in front of you, like, different t-shirts that I wear or different things that I just put, affirmations that I put in front of me so that it will remind me to be a good person. So I'm working on that aspect of it. Then coming out of this end of the whole pandemic, I'm starting to pick up as far as like events, in-person events, so that I can speak my truth and just be able to continue to influence and impact as many people globally through my words, work, and wisdom. So that's one aspect of it. And then ultimately, I would love to have just a resource center, which that's on my vision board for 5 to 7 years out. I want a resource center where people, I'm not just going to say at-risk youth or underprivileged or underserved neighborhoods or whatever, but I just want people to really get back into reading, the art of reading. I'm not saying I want to take the place of libraries, but I mean like really delve into specific bodies of reading or works that they resonate with that will help them to become better people. So I'm not really sure, like I'm still playing around with, like sometimes I'll be sleeping, then of course, I wake up and I have this monumental idea and I kind of write it down. So those are the things that I want to, bring out and just make sure that I can leave those things behind as well. People that really like to read, that love books in any form, whether there's audio books or whatever, I want some sort of resource center to help facilitate that, free, of course.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I look forward to seeing how that develops. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Oh, it's coming.
Wonderful.
Speaking and it is so.
Yes. Wonderful. Was there anything else you'd like to share, or how folks can find you to connect with you or support you, or anything that we missed?
Well, I would like to just add one thing before I share the information for how people can connect to me. I think it's very important that people, that we understand why it's important that we define ourselves so that we're not confined. Because when you define yourself, then racism, stereotypes, stigmas, and whatever else, it has no bondage over you. Like it can't, hold you down or hold you under. So that's one of the sayings that I pass around quite a lot, where when you define yourself, you're not confined. So I think that that's definitely important as it relates to your podcast, where you talk about amplifying, Black stories, where you talk about amplifying true stories. Just taking notice of those types of, of things to help make you become a better person. So just remember that.
Yeah.
Define yourself. And then, those words, nasty words or comments or whatever else, like you don't feed into it, and there's no fuel, there's no fire towards it, because if you know who you are and what you have, most of the time you don't even react to stuff like that. So I think that's important. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I appreciate it. I don't take it lightly. So I'm hoping that your viewers and your listeners have found something that is of value for them to become a better person. My website is www.inotherwordsbystone.com. I'm on every social media outlet known to man. So either you can, and it's not by choice, because I'm
sure.
Really what's crazy is because a lot of us, we present this picture like we're such extroverts, but we're really introverts.
Yes. Yeah.
But I have to be. So, hey, I'm on every social media outlet. Either you can search Angela Bestseller Marshall, or you can search The Story and Life of an Ex-NFL Wife. And thank you so much again for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a blast.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, I appreciate your time and sharing your stories with us for Take Notice. And I really look forward to seeing what comes next for you and staying connected. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories. Connect with us on social media. We are at Take Notice Podcast. You can also find us at www.takenoticepodcast.org. And if you're interested in being a guest, please reach out. You can email us at takenoticepodcast@gmail.com. Take Notice, Amplifying Black Stories is produced, hosted, and edited by Allison Preisinger-Heggins. Music by Version Big 5 featuring Darius Heggins. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for taking notice.